Good morning, everyone. The knives continue to come out for Andrew Scheer, and maybe I missed this. Maybe I'm not seeing this for whatever reason. Who knows? I think generally conservatives are happy with Andrew Scheer. I think they were happy with him going into the election. I think they're happy with how they did in the election. All of that aside, this is Stephen Harper's former director of communications, Corey Tenyuk. And here's him talking about a rigged leadership convention. And this isn't as explosive as this tweet makes it seem. He's saying that all conventions have inherent conflict of interest just because of who they're run by. And there's lots of reasons for what he's saying. But he says fundamentally it's a rigged process and it should be more robust. But here it is. And I apologize if it's not loud enough. I've done everything I can to turn it up. I have tried to solve this problem. Anyway, carry on. Here we go.
I think that for those who would like to see Andrew Scheer stay on, I think Andrew should make those arguments before the party membership and amongst a competitive field of candidates. And how one gets the authority to lead the party into the next election is by having their leadership tested in a true way, not in a sort of a rigged convention process, but in a true leadership race.
Do you think by those comments that it will be rigged?
It's always rigged.
What does that mean?
Well, the people administering it are in a huge conflict of interest. They set when the delegate selection meetings are, they set all the rules around it. They can put their finger on the scale in a very undemocratic way. And if history is to be a predictor of the past, if the past is to be a predictor of the future, then we'll see that again, because that's what we always see.
Were you ever one of the people pulling those strings?
I never worked in party headquarters during a leadership race, so no.
So I'll leave it there, but they explore that a little bit more in the remaining time in the interview. But it's an interesting take on the whole process and saying, well, he said clearly that they get to define the rules, and that's true. Deloitte was the proctor of this. That means they watched the count and said that, yes, people counted, but they didn't have any say in whether it was an accurate count or anything to that effect. And I've reported on that before, and the oddities in the leadership race, in the conservative leadership race between Andrew Scheer and Maxime Bernier. So, I've talked about that, but it's interesting to hear people who are involved in the process say this now. That said, he's on the interview circuit. He's just been relieved of a job. So, who knows? I don't know. But it's interesting. Interesting stuff. Here's Maxime Bernier, and he says, this is how the morally and intellectually corrupt libcons play politics. Edifying. And CBC Politics is reporting recordings reveal details of campaign to attack Maxime Bernier, PPC, as racist before the election. Here's Sarah Chung, and she says, hey, Warren Kinsella said, quote, but the extremism found in the People's Party of Canada is far worse and far more pervasive than anything I experienced before. Would it be possible to show the evidence you found? Who, what, when, why, where, how? Right. Could you give some examples of the racism that you've uncovered, specifically of Maxime Bernier and People's Party people? Because I was accused of being an actual Nazi, right? Weird. Especially considering my history. But regardless of all of that, it's funny how anybody could label anybody else racist. It's so, this whole thing is just, it was interesting to be a part of. And now this is, I'm blocked by Mr. Kinsella now on Twitter because he was complaining about the CBC running a story about him that he didn't like. And I said, oh, sorry, Mr. Kinsella, but I don't pity you. You're a racist propagandaist who is now upset that the newspaper is doing to you what you take money to do to other people. Sorry, man. You reap what you sow. And that's essentially it. But here's the story around what happened. And I wish that apparently there's a recording. We've only got like 2 little snippets of this recording. I would love to hear the whole thing. Like there's less than 2 minutes of the recording in this whole news article. And I'm going to read the article right now, but I just found it so interesting. They quote the recording, but they don't let us hear all of these recordings. We're going to listen to everything that is put in there, but it's weird. It's weird. Anyway, here we go. CBC is reporting. Recordings reveal details of campaign to attack Maxime Bernier PPC as racist before the election. Strategist Warren Kinsella told his Daisy Group employees, quote, Hamish and Walsh will be asking about results. Audio recordings shared with CBC News reveal political strategist Warren Kinsella told employees working on a campaign against the People's Party of Canada that leader Maxime Bernier was a, quote, racist and a white supremacist who would be, quote, easy to expose in the lead up to the federal election campaign. Dubbed, quote, Project Cactus, the campaign against Bernier and the PPC was run by Kinsella's political consulting firm Daisy Group. Kinsella made the comments during a staff meeting about the campaign in May. Quote, I want the hatred you have for Maxime Bernier to wash over you as a purifying force, Kinsella tells his staff in one recording made during a meeting on May 16th. There's nobody in the country doing what we are doing to Maxime Bernier. The recordings were provided to CBC News by a source who was present at the meetings and asked not to be named due to concerns about retaliation. Yeah, here's the purifying source clip.
Okay, everybody else, go and be nasty, be mean, get me content. I'm leaving this afternoon. All of you are ordered to leave here early tomorrow. Okay? But the war room assignment stuff continues on the weekend. If you see somebody stumble on the weekend, your job is to come down from the hills with your gun and shoot them. That's what you do. So I want the hatred you have for Maxime Bernier to wash over you as a purifying force. There's nobody in the country doing what we're doing to Max Bernier. There's nobody else doing it. It's the people in this room. So do it.
Interesting, right? Nobody else doing this in the country to Maxime Bernier. It's just the people in this room. Weird. It's a weird thing to use to galvanize people. It's weird. I don't know. Anyway, back to the article. In response to questions from CBC News, Kinsella would not say who he was talking about in those recordings. A source previously said the campaign was conducted on behalf of the Conservative Party of Canada. Hamish Marshall was the Conservatives' 2019 federal election campaign manager, while John Walsh is the former president of the Conservative Party and was co-chair of the elections campaign. Quote, I have never monitored or overseen or any other synonym, any project or anything with Daisy or any Kinsella person or entity, said Marshall in an email to CBC News when asked about the recordings. John Walsh declined to comment on Daisy's work. Quote, I was happy to serve as the volunteer chair in the... Okay, so I just want to point this out. This is a little tap dance, right? The question was, what do you think about Daisy's work? And here are the recordings we have. And he says, I was happy to serve as the volunteer chair of the 2019 Conservative National Party or National Campaign. My duties in that capacity ended on election night when I sadly did not deliver a victory for my leader, Andrew Scheer. That's not addressing the issue. Here's the part that addresses the issue. He added in response to questions about Daisy's campaign, I'm not sure what is being referred to in your email and have no comment. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I tried to deliver a victory for my leader and that didn't work. It satisfies a lot of people. A lot of people will read that and just carry on as if that's the answer, but it's not an answer. Here's the Hamish and Walsh recording.
We are the War Room Company. We have to start acting like one. Okay? We got to. At some point, Hamish, I let him know last night that I'm not going to be at the lunch thing today, but Hamish and Walsh are going to say on Cactus, what are these guys doing for us?
What are these guys doing for us? And if you don't know who Hamish is, Hamish has connections to the Rebel Media. And so I don't know why this is refreshing like this, but anyway, Rebel Media director as 2019 campaign chair, right? So it's very interesting because Rebel didn't come out. They don't usually cover Maxime Bernier. It's been interesting to watch their silence on certain things and the way the Rebel's been covering certain things. I don't know about Fair and Balanced. I guess that's CNN, isn't it? Back to the article. A spokesperson for the Conservative Party said the party doesn't comment on election strategy but follows all rules and election laws. In October, the Globe and Mail first reported, and CBC News subsequently confirmed, that Daisy Group was behind the social media campaign to highlight xenophobic statements made on social media by PPC candidates and their supporters. Since then, Conservative Party leader Andrew Scheer has refused to state whether his party had enlisted Daisy's services for the campaign. When contacted by CBC News on Monday and told about the recordings, Kinsella issued a statement, which he also published on his website. And it's basically the same statement he published last time, so I'm not going to reread it. In the same recording of the May 16th meeting, Kinsella's wife, from whom Kinsella says he is now separated, and former partner at Daisy, Lisa Kirby Kinsella, tells the room that Walsh texts her when he approves of her work. Walsh is on Walsh is watching on Cactus, she says. He texted me, his text to me, and will be like, quote, that was awesome, like on the Rempel stuff, so he's watching. Maxime Bernier publicly criticized Michelle Rempel in multiple tweets in May, accusing her of being aligned with far-left transgender activism and criticizing the fact that she had blocked users on Twitter. So this is what I'm talking about. They say that they have this recording. Why don't they play this recording? Anyway, back to the article. Kirby Kinsella responded several times on Twitter to Bernier's criticism of Rempel, accusing him at one point of hostility towards women. I scroll down, quote, we actually have a white supremacist trying to become Prime Minister of Canada, Kinsella says. I've run campaigns depicting Preston Manning, Stockwell Day, Kim Campbell, depicting them as racist. None of them were, but I was successful at depicting them as racist. This guy actually is a racist, okay? So it's low-hanging fruit. That's quoting Kinsella in a recording that I can't access. So that seems strange that I can't access it, but I'm going to go back to Sarah Chung's question here. She says, but the extremism found in the party is far worse, blah, blah, blah. Where is your evidence? Could you tell us where and who? Who are these racists? Who are these white supremacists? I've spent time with Mr. Bernier. I've never seen him or heard him utter anything to the effect of a white supremacist statement or a racist statement. It's very interesting that you can make claims like this without anything to back it up. I scroll down a little bit further. A spokesperson for the People's Party of Canada told CBC News that Kinsella wrote similar things on his website and Twitter, and that Bernier, quote, believes these statements are clearly defamatory and is keeping all legal options open. I scroll down a little bit more. Elsewhere in the recording, Kinsella exhorts his staff for being vigilant in their efforts. Quote, all of you are capable of doing it, but I need somebody who doesn't sleep, basically. I had one kid who did it. His name's Ahmed Hassan. He's now the Minister of Immigration, says Kinsella. Hassan was named Minister of Families, Children, and Social Development following the election. I would walk in and he'd have been up listening to 1010 at 4:30 in the morning and say to me, quote, here's what they said. I'm like, F it, let's go, right? Scroll down a little bit more. In the recording from May 30th, Daisy staffers discuss registering as a third party with Kinsella. They talk about buying Facebook ads for another client and then discuss whether they might have to register if they, quote, do a spend for Cactus. Quote, I don't think Hamish wants us to. I think, says Kinsella, adding, Walsh is in Saudi Arabia. Quote, it might not be a bad idea to do some paid tweets for Stamp before June 30th just to get our followers up so then when we get to June 30th, we have more followers, says a staffer in response. I scroll down. A separate body, the Commissioner of Canada Elections, investigate any complaints related to elections. Quote, the Commissioner of Canada Elections does not comment on whether or not the office is carrying out an investigation into a particular matter. This is in keeping with the confidentiality provisions of the Canada Elections Act, wrote spokesperson Michelle Lebert in an email to CBC News. So I think that that's very interesting. Okay, there's one last story. It's SNC Lavalin, and I think that it's worth discussing and worth talking about. It's a big deal. And the trial is ongoing. So, I mean, it's so interesting, all this stuff happening. And the fact that we've had an election in the interim, right? An election where recordings reveal stuff like this, like dirty politics like this. It's all so interesting to me. Okay, Montreal Gazette reporting, SNC Lavalin paid more than $118 million to a shell company, witness. This is, so the ongoing trial, and this is the latest developments in that. A forensic accountant who analyzed SNC Lavalin's financial statements say the firm transferred more than $118 million to Swiss bank accounts tied to a shell company established by former executive. Of that money, Sophie Deary said on Monday, $14 million was transferred to a former vice president, Sam Bibawi, and another $11 million was sent to his uncle's bank account. Rahid Ben Asia, the former executive behind the shell company, received $35 million. Quote, the amounts went in and out almost on the same day. Deary told jurors it was an account used only as an extra layer when distributing money. Deary was hired by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to investigate the firm's dealing in Libya between 2001 and 2011. She testified Monday during Bibawi's fraud and corruption trial at the Montreal courthouse. Deary told the jury she spent 1,500 hours looking through the firm's finances. The accountant looked into several bank accounts in play, including two belonging to Bibawi, converting the different currencies the firm used to make the payments, euros, US dollars, Libyan dinars, and Deutschmark. The money all came from the contracts the firm signed in Libya, Deary said. We wanted to know where the money went and what specifically was done with each amount, she said. There were a lot of bank accounts and a lot of transactions. The jury has heard how the company in question, Duval Securities Incorporated, was established by Ben Asia while he acted as SNC Lavalin's main executive in Libya. The Crown argues the money is paid to Duval The money paid to Duval was used to pay bonuses and kickbacks, including to Saeed Gaddafi, the son of Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Deary told the jurors Monday roughly $27 million of the money transferred to Duval was used to buy Saeed Gaddafi's yacht. Ben Asia had testified it was Bibawi who was instructing him what to do in Libya, pressuring him to settle a claim that the firm had filed over a money-losing contract. He later pled guilty in Switzerland to charges of corrupting a foreign official and laundering money. Bibawi, 73, faces charges of fraud and bribing a foreign public official. His trial continues Tuesday. Right? So, I mean, all of this stuff is interconnected. All of this stuff is stacking up. And, I mean, there doesn't appear to be an end to the bombshells that are coming from this trial, from the SNC trial, and from, I mean, recordings from the election. And I just, there's so much going on. It's really, really interesting. So thanks for watching. Thanks for watching me. Thanks for watching me watch this. And thanks for watching me. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out the People's Party of Canada.ca. And have a wonderful, wonderful